Listen to the JT Sports Podcast on all podcasting platforms and leave a 5-star review.
The first thing that I want to talk about, Georgia was in a dogfight with Missouri. They beat Missouri 26-22. And I understand that in the world of college football, the mantra is any given Saturday, anything can happen. And there has been a lot of not only upsets, but close games. Remember, we had Alabama, Texas not too long ago. But if you were to tell me that Missouri was going to take Georgia to the wire, I would have laughed in your face, because let me remind you that a week ago, the majority of us considered Georgia to be the best team in college football. Now, last week, they was kind of in a little bit of a tough game with Kent State for a moment, and then they ended up pulling away. But I didn't really say anything about it. I was just like, they can't blow everybody out, so I'm just going to let it slide. But I couldn't let this one slide. This is Missouri. Missouri is one of the least talented teams in the SEC this season. And Georgia was a multiple point favorite going into this thing. So when you look at this game and you were to ask yourself, why was this game close? Well, the first thing is the turnover battle. Georgia had 2 turnovers in this game. You had 1 turnover really early into this game by Kendall Milton. Then you had Stetson Bennett, who put the ball on the turf in the second quarter, which led to Missouri getting a field goal, going up 13-0. And what was even more crazy is that Missouri went into halftime with a 16-6 lead. Now, I didn't take it upon myself to watch this game live when it was happening. I was watching other games at the time because my mindset was, Georgia just came out a little bit flat. They're going to blow them out at halftime. Well, I was still wrong because it was still a really close game in halftime. And the main reason why this game was so close was because of Missouri's defense. Missouri's defense showed up to play for this game. Their defense was on the field for 26 more plays than Georgia's defense. And despite that, they still had a pretty good showing. They gave Missouri's offense several opportunities to not only put points up on the board, but to help Missouri put Georgia away. And their defense was really good at causing havoc behind the line of scrimmage. They had a couple of sacks. They had 9 tackles for loss. Missouri's defense was really good in this game. And when you look at Stetson Bennett, he didn't play well in this game. And he didn't really play all that well against Kent State. But like I said, it's Kent State. You can't have a great performance every single week. Sometimes you do come out flat. But Stetson Bennett didn't really look all that accurate in this game. I mean, he just was off. And not just him, but the whole team entirety was off. And when you look at Georgia and what the perception was about this team prior to almost losing to Missouri this past weekend, most of us felt like this was the most dominant team in college football. And we knew eventually Georgia was going to get tested, but not really until they got into the meat and potatoes of their conference schedule. They were to get into a close game with Florida, okay, that's understandable. Or if they were to get into a close game with Alabama in the SEC championship game this year, if that were to happen, understandable. But if you were to tell me that Missouri, out of all teams, was going to be the first team to really challenge Georgia this year, I would have not believed you. Because Missouri has not really looked all that good this year, but this year they came to play. But why did Missouri lose this game? Well, they only had 14 total yards of offense, and 3 points in the fourth quarter. Georgia had 14 points in the fourth quarter, so they got outscored. They also had only 14 yards of offense compared to Georgia having 185 yards of total offense in the fourth quarter. So Missouri just ran out of gas. And it goes back to the big point I've been saying all this season. When it comes to beating a team like Alabama or Georgia, you have to be able to put them away. And you can't allow them opportunities to win the game. And yet, Missouri allowed Georgia an opportunity to win the game. You see, teams like Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State are really hard to beat because they kind of have like this little glitch that I call the trapdoor ability. And the trapdoor ability allows them to, whenever they're on the verge of facing a team that's about to give them a upset L, they end up just pulling off all these crazy plays and all these random things start happening in their favor and they end up winning the game. Let me show you guys something. This was Georgia, and I don't care if this gets copyrighted. This was crazy. So look at this play. Look at this play. You guys might not be able to see it, but this was ridiculous. This was a play to Darnell Washington. He caught this thing in double coverage and got popped and still hold on to the football. That was wild. That was absolutely wild. You see, when you're playing teams like Georgia, they just have all these kind of crazy things that goes their way that you have to overcome if you want to upset them. So when it comes to a team like Missouri, they just didn't have enough left in the tank to get enough big plays in the fourth quarter to put Georgia away. And that's why Georgia won this game. So I still give a big round of applause to Missouri for the performance that they had on Saturday. Very, very good game on their behalf because let's be honest, I don't think any of us were expecting that game to be as close as what it was. Even if you did pick Georgia to cover, I'm pretty sure nobody expected that game to come down to being decided by one possession. So props off to Missouri. Let's see how this game affects how they perform for the rest of the year because, you know, maybe they have a close game like that and maybe it boosts up their morale and they continue that into the next couple of games. Maybe they win some and keep building momentum, or maybe this loss demoralizes them because they're like, man, we almost had it. And then they go on another losing streak, and it's just really interesting at seeing teams like Missouri, programs that kind of are struggling, give teams like Georgia really tough games and how it can affect the morale of the locker room and their performance for the remainder of the season. But let me know what you guys think about Georgia barely surviving Missouri, getting the victory, down in the comment section down below.